So we're here, we're outside of a random place on the streets because we got kicked out of our cafe, unfortunately. But Adam is still with us, he didn't leave.
I think it's for the best because the natural light is really good for my skin.
You look great, Adam.
Thank you.
So,
no filters needed.
So I was talking, we were about to talk about like very good, I guess, it's a relevant scenario because we're talking about where you actually like to do your work.
Yeah.
You have all these options in New York. You mentioned obviously cafes are not the greatest place, but where do you love to work?
Yeah, I guess if I were to work at a cafe, it would not be at Black Brick on Bedford and South 2nd, a cafe that I will never go to again, I guess. That's fine. I usually work from home. I have a home office, you know, separate studio set up where I'm doing my design work in sort of a controlled, quiet space. I can't also, who does design work on a laptop anyway? That's like not ideal at all. So yeah, generally I'm working from home. The only times that I'll work from somewhere else, usually I'll work at a diner, and that's just because like unlimited coffee refills, tuna melt, and you know, when I need to do illustration or when I need to do a lot of writing and not be distracted, that's where I'll go out. But in general, cafes are, I think, noisy, and everyone's just like trying to be seen working.
Right.
It's like, I don't need to prove it.
So when it comes to balancing your workload, because you're someone who, you have your own products, you have your own kind of brand and social media to maintain, and then there's like doing the work itself, which is making new products and writing. How do you balance like promo, fulfilling orders, you know, all that type of stuff? How do you kind of balance that? And if you have any advice for like other creatives that are trying to market themselves and actually do the work?
Sure. I think the balance is different for everyone. It depends on what you're doing and what kind of person you are. And I don't mean that in a good or bad way. I just mean, you know, you understand how your brain compartmentalizes things. So for me, I have a sort of a structure down where I'm packing orders usually in the morning so that when I go out, you know, I walk past the post office, like that's just logical to me. When I have a ton of work, I know that I have to block out days to sit down and be writing or be doing illustration or cleaning up just a shit ton of scans. Sometimes I'll leave that for the very last, my least favorite part. But it's sort of, yeah, it's up to you to find that balance, and it isn't easy, but it gets easier. And it helps when you are your own boss and you're your own brand, because everything I do is in service of not just my company, but really directly me, and it's like my narcissism pushes me forward. It's like not that hard to do it when my name's on it. It feels so much better than previous jobs that I had.
Yeah, and then on that note, do you ever hire out help or have a team or any freelancers that do work with you? I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but yeah.
You know, for the most part, everything is still me, and I keep things pretty small scale intentionally because I don't love to hire out work. I don't love to let go of things, but I definitely have a few people who regularly help me when I have like really big orders or when I have to do product packaging, when I'm fulfilling just like a ton of stuff. Like my annual calendar project just is very big now and takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But in terms of design, I'm more likely to turn down client work than I am to like accept it and then sort of like spread that work out. Like a traditional studio, you know, you would take on the work and then have people doing different parts of it. But for me, I'm just usually like, no thank you. Thanks for reaching out, no thanks.
Do you get requests for projects that are not really your thing, not really your style? Like what's your favorite type of project to take on?
I think my favorite type of project varies, and it's usually just like, what am I interested in? What do I feel like making? I do get offers or requests to do like, will you build me a website? It's like, I don't like coding, and now that I don't have to do it, I just don't. You know, I studied design. Like I can build out like a product catalog. Like I can do pitch decks. Like I used to build decks for an ad agency for like a year and a half. But now that I don't have to, I'd rather not. But I do find that people are really surprised when I'm turning over client work. You know, I'm doing like this fun illustrative style where people are like, oh, he barely knows what he's doing. And then I send them sort of a beautifully formatted, you know, structured InDesign deck with page numbers and stuff. And everyone's just like, what? Who did this?
He knows how to design.
Yeah, I consider myself a graphic designer, and even my most simple handwritten work is a combination of text and image. I mean, that's what design is.
What would you advise like a young designer to do when they're establishing themselves and they're young in their career and they don't want people to write them off because they don't look super professional, but at the same time they want to stay true to who they are?
There are so many graphic designers out there that finding your unique voice or your sort of spin on things is, I think, really important, right? Because when it comes down to hiring someone for work, you're looking for someone who speaks to you, the client as a person, and wants to find that connection, someone that they can communicate with, where ideas are communicated easily and people are on the same page. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being yourself and keeping it a little weird. But I do think there's something to be said for presentation, where if your work is sort of off-kilter and kooky and like a little edgy, and then your portfolio is that, and your site is that, and your resume is like hilarious, like at a certain point people are not sure that you can like sit down and get it done. Like, I'm all for like stoner art, but if you seem like you're just high all the time, that might not help you get gigs. So really finding the balance where you get to be yourself, but you're also using your professional tools, using the things that you've learned and the things that you know, just to strike that right balance of like, I'm fun, but I get shit done.
Okay, so I also want to ask you about the number of similar products or similar style that has emerged. Obviously, you found some people that have like ripped off your stuff. How does that feel like to you personally? Like, is it super offensive? Are you happy that it's getting seen? Like, what's your thought on that as a creative, right?
Sure. I don't own handwriting, and there's so many people who have come before me who do similar work, and so I'm not upset necessarily at like work that seems like mine. And for a long time, I didn't actually believe that anyone was looking at my work. In the last 2 years, it's become much more obvious that I directly inspire some other people, which, one, is weird, and two, is frustrating when someone who I know has followed me on Instagram for 5 years all of a sudden is releasing products and personal work that looks exactly like mine. There are even cases where I've been involved in like previous iterations of work that then go on to like take new life. But at the end of the day, I'm just really happy when anyone can do what they like, and make money from it, and maybe even make a full living from it. So I try to put my pride aside and just be like, oh, someone else is making rent, that's great. Like, more power to everyone.
How have things changed from kind of becoming like published with Penguin? How have things changed, and like, will you continue in that direction? Are you considering yourself like still an independent creative?
Yeah, I mean, I think publishing, several books with Penguin is not separate from being an independent creative, and so, I have an editor that I work with, which has been really great for my process, because sometimes when you're doing everything yourself, you don't have necessarily as many outside voices steering you in the right direction. I've learned a lot. I just wrapped up my 3rd book with Penguin that'll be out at the end of this year. It's sort of a departure for me. That said, like, again, even my most sort of like simple looking work is very detailed and laid out, and even with Penguin, when I turn in like full InDesign package production files, they're like, oh, like, we're outside, this is very authentic. They're still sort of a little bit surprised, so I don't know if I will only do my own thing for years to come. I have thoughts about going back to advertising, taking what I've learned personally and in past jobs and sort of like landing in a strategy role. I also love consulting with small business or online tech-related businesses, talking about places where humanity and tech intersect, because I think there are a lot of really genius people out there building products that sort of miss the mark in terms of like actual engagement and use. So I don't know exactly what's next, but I think working with Penguin, working with Abrams, working with Urban Outfitters, working with Fish's Eddy has all been really helpful and productive, and an important part of my own growth, even in this sort of independent phase of my career.